Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Adam Cole with Grant Park Academy of the Arts, and today we're interviewing Josh Misko, the guitar instructor. Hi, Josh. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Great. It's great to see you.
It's great to see you as well, especially with all the weird times that I don't remember what humans look like.
I know, and you're sort of sequestered right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we get started, Josh, I want to make sure I say thank you to some folks.
Yeah.
Thank you to Brass and Winds, Quinn, the Eskimo company. These are good friends of ours. The best place to buy woodwind and brass instruments that I know of. They'll take care of you very well, and they'll give you a good price. We want to say thank you to them for all their support. Okay, Josh, let's get started.
Yeah.
And the first thing I'd like to know is, speaking of getting started, how did you get started playing the guitar? Or did you get started on the ukulele?
I got started on the acoustic guitar, and growing up, it was really a great source for me to distract me from family issues. I'm sure a lot of kids have that kind of, upbringing. And when I started playing guitar, I asked my mom if she would be open with getting me an acoustic guitar. And at the time, she was in between jobs, and my stepdad was going to the training academy to be a law enforcement officer. And so money wasn't, it was no small ask, is basically what I'm saying. And she told me, as long as you promise that you're going to write your own music and actually take this seriously, then I will buy you a guitar. And so I kind of give my mom like 100% credit, because, some of my best friends in elementary school were starting to get into it in high school. I think I got my first guitar when I was 13 or 14, and was really into AC/DC and really into rock and, pop. And it just fell in love with it from there. It made life better and easier. And at the time, I was dealing with the court system, with a family drama between my parents, and it just was kind of my escape, and it was, very grateful for it. So that's sort of how it started. Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, that's great that you were able to have an escape like that. Tell me,
Yeah.
Was there a moment that you feel like you transitioned from a kid who was escaping to a guitar player?
Most definitely. It was when I started really understanding the relationship of lyric and melody and chords, and melody and chords. When I started realizing I was seeing it from like a utility standpoint as an artist, or using it as a tool, was when I realized, oh wow, I'm starting to understand the mechanics of this instrument, not just the emotional aspect of it as well. And once I went to music school in Hollywood, California, I went to school for singing, but I started to really dive into the guitar classes as well, because at the time they would allow students from the vocal program to get into, some electives. I don't believe they do that anymore. But I started getting really inspired by some of my friends who just ripped, just shredders, and sort of took classes from them off the books, and next thing you know, I just fell in love with it all over again. It's a constant learn, constant studies and getting better and better. So I feel like I've got so far to go for the goals that I've set for myself. But yeah, I think probably like late teens, early 20s, when I really started to take professionalism serious, was when guitars started to shift from this escapism to more of a utility and part of this career that I was trying to build for myself.
Okay, I'd like to come back later to talk about what some of your goals are. But before I
Yeah.
do that, let's remember we got people watching who are maybe interested in the guitar. What do they need to know about the guitar? And maybe you could also talk about the ukulele and why they might even consider that as a starter.
Oh, ukulele is the best. It's such a happy instrument. And maybe I'm biased because, I'm from the West Coast, but I just love that instrument. One thing that anyone should know about any instrument, in my opinion, but more so maybe piano and guitar, is you can learn the basic chords and basic songs and play around a fireplace with an acoustic or something after a good 6 months or even a year, depending on how serious you take it. It's not this grand obstacle that's intimidating. Like, I feel like there's so many people out there that are like, oh, I wish I'd pick up guitar, but I don't have the time, or I don't have the inspiration, or I don't have the this or that, or all these excuses. And really, 5 minutes a day 6 months later would really blow your mind, especially if you're not trying to pursue a professional career, but you're just doing it because you love it. And that whole playing Wonderwall around the campfire could very well happen in 6 months if you, you just play a little bit every day. And ukulele is a fantastic precursor to guitar, but it's so much more than that. It's not just a precursor. I mean, there's players like Jake Shimabukuro who take that thing to like the Steve Vai world. Like he just rips on it. It's out of control. But the ukulele is great for students to start on who are trying to get into guitar because the strings are nylon. It has 4 strings. The theory is not grandly different, but it's a lot of the shapes are still the same. And it's a really great instrument to grow on. And the nylon strings are a lot softer on your fingers. Traditional acoustic guitar is steel. Classical guitars have nylon strings, so if you're more into classical music, then you won't run into that issue. But yeah, they just really go hand in hand. And so I guess my ultimate message, so I'm not rambling here, is don't be intimidated by it. If you want to do it, it only takes 5 minutes a day. Get a cheat. I mean, one of my students just bought a Recording King from that awesome music store down the road from us. What was their name again?
Earthshaking.
Earthshaking. Yeah. It was like $150 and the thing plays great. And so I'm saying, like, to get yourself started, if you don't spend the money on the wrong thing, you could really get something okay.
How could you get good in 5 minutes a day? I know that as a music teacher, but maybe some other people just don't believe you. How can you get good in 5 minutes a day?
That's fair. Well, we have the wonderful world of YouTube, which is really great, but targeted practice, I guess. Every once in a while I'll go and take a lesson from one of my like guitar friends who just are shredders who play in big bands, and their biggest thing is it's not about how long you practice, it's about what you practice. So set goals for yourself. For instance, I'll play for hours during the week of songs or things that aren't really pushing me as a guitar player, but I'll try to make sure I set at least 5 or 10 minutes of targeted practice towards scales or arpeggios or all these terms that you would eventually learn getting into music. Starting out, the relationship between basic music theory and basic chord structures. I love teaching new students a song that they love, starting with the song and then trying to understand the shapes of the chords and then following that with the theory, like, why are these chords built this way? Oh, they're built of a certain set of notes, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I guess the best answer would be like any skill or any passion, targeted practice. Even 5 minutes of true targeted practice just works wonders.
And it seems to me that that would really be the best use of a teacher, that the learning actually happens with you, but the teacher is the one that can tell you, this is the best use of your 5 minutes.
Absolutely. Teaching is going to last for the rest of time, no matter how well technology gets, because the person still has to be inspired. The person still has to be motivated and pushed. It's not easy to find your path as a musician. I mean, I didn't feel like I understood the trajectory that I was on until my early 20s. And this is after almost 10 years of trying to figure things out in my own music, And so, yeah, my favorite thing about teaching and why I always gear towards, I still take lessons. Why I always gear towards that human relationship is because you can work at your own pace, build a relationship, and that far outweighs a program.
Yeah.
So,
well, of course, you can have a relationship with a sax teacher or a piano teacher or a voice mm-hmm. teacher. Who's going to love guitar the most?
Oh man, that's so hard. Sorry, my cat.
Oh, that's okay.
It's so hard to say, I feel like, oh, come on, bub. Let me set him down.
We'd like to say thank you to a special guest.
Yeah, that's Mike. That's my cat.
Mike.
So it's hard to say, I feel like music in general, especially the pop instruments like piano or guitar, acoustic guitar, they traverse such a grand scope of music. It's like a piano and guitar can both be their own rhythm section as well as their own lead instrument. And basically what that means is you can have a singer-songwriter sit down and play to a giant audience with just his piano or with just his guitar. You could also have said guitar player ripping solos over a 10-piece band and fitting more of a lead instrument role. I mean, it's such a vast instrument. So I feel like everyone from children looking to just impress the ladies, all the way to adults who are trying to find a creative outlet, especially in times like this when our brains are extra plastic, neuroplasticity, and we're in this new world and this new environment of quarantine. And this gives us the ability to be more creative and try to pick up a new instrument, and that works your brain in really special ways. It's awesome. So anyway, the long story short is I think that it really could be anybody.
Okay, well,
anybody that wants to learn.
I want to be careful. You said impress the ladies. No, we have a lot of women watching, and I'm
well,
sure,
and the men as well. I'm sorry. I don't mean it in any negative way. I meant it's
just to point out that there is a bias, we know, for men to be musicians, and especially guitar players. There are fewer women guitar players, or if they're in guitar, maybe they're asked to take a secondary role. Do you feel that's necessary?
No, not at all. I have crossed paths with guitar player ladies or women that are far superior than I, as far as their playing and their understanding and it does not discriminate. Guitar does not discriminate. And it may be less common just because of our cultural upbringing and changes that have been made and how the history has grown. But there are women out there who are some of the most incredible, if not some of the best musicians on the planet. So it does not discriminate for sure. So okay. My apologies. I didn't mean to come
No apologies necessary. It's something I'd like to call attention to, because we can steer people away without even realizing it. And
totally.
Tell me, what about music? Tell me, what's your favorite music for the guitar? Maybe some of your favorite players, some of your favorite pieces.
Yeah. I've always been really, and I've been really passionate about pop music, about country music, popular chord progressions, which oftentimes can come off as much more simple as far as they're organized for a song, but not necessarily as far as how they're performed and the emotional aspect, the relationship between lyric and melody. Mm-hmm. For me, players like Steve Vai, John Mayer, I'm very, very, very into John Mayer. He's probably my biggest influence as far as a guitar player, he is most influenced by Stevie Ray Vaughan. So, it's mm-hmm. Blues, country, Brent Mason, guys like that. Oh my Lord, guys that, to have that kind of emotion and that kind of playability. I mean, you have to grow up, in the backcountry of Georgia to have that true, real, deep feeling like those guys. But yeah, popular music just really lights my fire. Popular country and popular adult contemporary blues. Not so much pop as in like bubblegum pop, but when I say pop, I'm talking more like John Mayer, adult contemporary. Pop is in the term popular, but not like Britney Spears, which I love Britney Spears, but not for my own musical inspiration. So
I understand. Do you want to share any of that? Can you play for us today? Are you in?
Yeah, if it'll come across. I didn't really prepare anything, but let me think.
Maybe something that really you really like.
Yeah. So, let me see if I've got a pick on me. One of my favorite John Mayer songs, and there's just a million of them. I'm gonna try. I haven't played this thing in a while, so it's actually in drop C.
So that means you have a non-traditional tuning for this song on the guitar.
Yeah. So basically, what it means is in the traditional tuning, I always play a half step down anyway. So for those of you who might know a little about guitar, usually guitar is tuned to E, not open E, but with the low string being a low standard E. I usually play to E flat. So now I just dropped down to B technically. So if I threw a capo on here, it would be back to normal. But, oh man, haven't done this song in a while. But John Mayer has this really beautiful piece called Neon. That's pretty hard to play on acoustic, but it's a really cool finger picking technique that I just absolutely love. Learning it was sort of a staple of my career. So forgive me if I messed up on it. I haven't played it in years, but
go for it.
It's a little rough,
Yeah,
but
that's beautiful.
you get the
And of
gist.
course,
So
Zoom sound being what it is, we heard some of that. I think it'd be really great if we had like maybe a video of something like that we could put on our site so people could hear it in slightly better
totally.
situation. But we could definitely see not only your wonderful technique but the joy that you have playing that. That's really great. Thank you for
Well,
sharing
thank
that
you.
with us at the last second like that.
Oh, sure, absolutely. I'm all about improv. So,
So what kind of music do you like that maybe is less about the guitar and more kind of a general thing?
less about the guitar. I'd say that the next instrument that really lights my fire would be somewhere in between piano and the violin or fiddle.
Mhm.
I I tried to get into piano, and I know like very basic piano, but I think that instrument is just so incredibly special. Adam, if you haven't had the chance to tell them about how incredible a piano player you are, I mean,
Well, if you want to
but
take lessons in piano, we Grant Park Academy of the Arts. We have
yeah,
instruction in piano, and
yep, absolutely.
I'll be
Um,
happy to teach you anything you want to know.
there you go, plug. Yeah, piano driven music. Elton John, I really loved. Ben Folds, I really loved. Oh, who else? Cat Stevens, all of those kinds of guys. I always leaned a little more towards the guitar players, towards like the Skinnards of the world, but
Hmm.
I listen to Cat Stevens all the time.
He is really a guitar player.
Cat was, but his music's got a lot of piano in it though.
That's true. It
So
does.
I
Very
guess I
beautiful.
guess I should have specified. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Elton
I was
John.
talking about in general.
Yeah,
Not, yeah.
I'll use Elton as an example. Blows my mind, and he's actually a great. He's a great example because sometimes you'll see people wanting to play piano or guitar and they'll be like, oh, my hands are too small. I'm never going to be able to do it. Well, you should Google Elton John's little baby hands and you'll see that it doesn't matter. He plays better than everyone and he has very small hands. And he's even talked about his small hands and how he's just an incredible musician. And so obstacles are made in here. It may not necessarily be tangible. So,
Well said.
but yeah, piano, I never learned fiddle or violin, but man, do I love listening to a great Americana act or, a great country fiddle player just ripping. So, and we have a great violin instructor at school as well, who's incredible. So, I mean,
Yeah, we
that's
do.
another great instrument that you could learn at Grant Park. So,
Yeah, she's very versatile. We enjoy working with Adelaide. We'll be talking with her in just a week or two, so that's great.
oh, good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Tell me, since we've segued to teaching, what's your approach to teaching, Josh?
You know, I do have a general approach to teaching, and obviously it always depends on the, if this, what, where the student, if the student has any experience. If the student does not have experience, the first thing I like to find out is what are your goals? And if they don't even have goals yet, that's totally fine. Then I put in the back of my brain, well, let's make a goal like a year from now to find out what your goals are, because goals help, they help kind of create a roadmap. But what I really love to do is find out like what genre do you love? What kind of guitar are you really attracted to? Are you more of like an electric guitar like Metallica raw or like rocker? Or are you more into jazz? Or are you more into blues, like, pop blues, like what I love? And then once I figure that out, I like to start with obviously understanding the basics of the instrument, what the string names are, basic theory. Then I'd like to start learning like a beginner version of one of their favorite songs to really inspire them and make it exciting, make them want to get up in the morning and go pick it up and struggle to play an E minor chord. And then after we understand the shapes of those chords, because just like on piano, guitar chords will come in shapes on the guitar neck. Then, well, what are those notes? Like what notes make up those chords and why? And then I go into some basic awesome books, like Hal Leonard. I've always been a huge fan of Hal Leonard. He's got great beginner ukulele and guitar books, which I use all the time. And I slowly pepper that in over time, usually a couple weeks later, in some music theory books, trying to understand, you know, the language of music, which is very, very crucial. I didn't start getting into like the language of music seriously until later in my career. And I really, really wish I took it serious from the beginning. I really do.
Now, how
And
do
I
you
try
keep
to
that
instill
from?
that in my students.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's okay.
How do you keep theory from being something that's a chore?
Try to gear it around a song they already want to learn. Try to gear it around. Now, you know, I'll always, the exercises within the beginner books, like Hot Cross Buns and all the traditional, you know, tunes like Ode to Joy, those hold a special place because they're so memorable, and they're basic individual single string like theory practice, which is also very important. So I try to do that no matter what, because it's very valuable, even if it can feel tedious. But that comes down to the whole principle of practice, targeted practice. So like whichever aspect, if we have a 30-minute lesson and 15 minutes of that is fun because we're learning Wonderwall, that other 15 minutes needs to be targeted. So if it is a little bit tedious, that's okay. We could build it around how they're feeling. Oftentimes new guitar players, especially kids, their fingers can hurt. If their fingers start to hurt, well, okay, let's put the guitar down and let's get into this theory book a little bit and understand, you know, the E string. And I just try to keep it, I try to keep the theory relevant, but not too mathematical. Now, if they're adults, they tend to have a little more desire to go down that route, at least with the experience that I've had. But for the most part, you know, it'll be sort of a play off of how the student is feeling during that day, and how can I best serve the student to make this the most enjoyable experience, but also the most productive one that it can be. And so I'll sort of merge them all together, if that makes sense.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
That's great. I definitely, yeah, I play guitar just a little bit, and I think I would enjoy taking a few lessons from you myself. So
Yeah.
I'd like to set that up with you sometime.
I'd love that. I'd love a piano lesson.
we can trade.
Yeah.
We both work at the same place, the Grant Park Academy of the Arts.
There you go.
Josh, is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you'd like to be sure folks know?
I am available. I would love to take on some more teaching or some more students. If there's anything that we've learned through this whole experience of quarantining, is now we have the ability to teach online, and it's been working great. So if students who are watching this happen to live, you know, outside of Atlanta and can't drive in, we can set something up to where we can do remote teaching. And the Academy has a special way about how we take care of our students and how we teach our students. And if you want to be a part of that special family, we can make it happen even if you can't drive into Atlanta. And that really goes for anywhere. I mean, the internet makes the world a small place. So, you know, thank you for having me, and thank you for doing this highlight. I think it's great. And if a new potential student is watching, I would love to get to know you, potentially have a consultation lesson, see what your goals are, and see if we're the right fit, you know. Most of the time we are.